Welcome back to the weekly Trusted Visions podcast. With all the craziness and busyness towards the end of the year and movement, it doesn't seem like we can get the entire Trusted Visions team together as a whole. So we're missing David Perez this week. Sean, welcome back. We missed you for a couple of weeks with all the travel and working with groups and advisors that are trying to do this whole year-end push. It's been a little hectic. So welcome back and thank you for being on this podcast. We're going to wrap up this month's podcast of really taking a deep dive into third-party recruiting firms and in the weeds. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, what do you mean you're wrapping up? We're going to take next week off for Thanksgiving, so hope that everybody can enjoy their Thanksgiving. So we get these questions a lot, Sean, from clients of, well, how do you get paid? And who pays you? And does some firms pay you more? So I want to dig into that a little bit deeper. And for our audience being our advisors, OSJs, and enterprises, we have to be a little bit cautious because of NDAs. We can't give specifics about what broker-dealers pay, but we're going to speak and get into the weeds about that. So I'm going to start this one off, Sean, of, how does a third-party recruiter get paid? And why do some firms or broker-dealers pay more to the third-party recruiters than other firms? So let me start with, in context, pretty much all broker-dealers pay the same, which is a combination of some 6% out there, whether it's some broker-dealers pay all 6% up front, some pay half of it up front and pay the rest monthly on actual, some pay half of it up front and then the other half after a year on actual production. So all in all, most, and when I preface most, and this will be part of the other subtopic, when I preface most pay the same, some do pay higher. And so it's important to understand that, yes, we as financial consultants to you are making a good amount of money when we place you, which I'm not going to steal your thunder, Sean. So that's why we talk about the involvement. Now, the flip side of that question would be, why do some broker-dealers pay more than others? I mean, we've seen, Sean, some broker-dealers go out there and say, hey, I'm going to pay 10% instead of 6%, or I'm going to pay 12%. Right. Some broker-dealers throw in their kickers if you send them enough business. And I guess my answer to that would be, it's they're either having a hard time with recruiting and not getting enough leads, so they want to beef up recruiting. That would be my first opinion. My second opinion would be they're doing it out of desperation because they're not competing. Now, we've all ran through this in our careers in corporate America, Sean, to our audience, it's okay to ask a firm or a recruiter with a third-party recruiting firm, what are you getting paid? And are you getting paid more by sending me to this firm versus that firm? In my opinion, you should be asking that, because I've had situations when I was in corporate America working with a third party where we got pretty far down the line with a few prospects. We even did home office visits, and that advisor or OSJ was pretty much, hey, I'm ready to go. And I'll give you one example. We had done the HOV, third-party recruiter came to me and said, if we get this deal, this individual's committed. So we got that deal. It took some sharpening of the pencil. And then all of a sudden, the advisor, I had visited them in their office in California. I had flew them out to the broker-dealer and visited them, got him the deal. And then he went completely dark. And it was a little odd to me of what happened. So after about a month, 6 weeks or so, the advisor finally called me back and said, look, I was really committed to joining your firm, but at the last minute, this third-party recruiting firm really was pushing me towards this other firm. Well, lo and behold, that other firm that they swept in at the 11th hour had just kicked off where they're paying third-party recruiting firms 10% versus 6%. So I mentioned that for our audience as if a third-party recruiting firm is really pushing you to one firm or tries to divert directions pretty quickly, that should throw up some red flags. Not necessarily a huge issue, but you should be asking questions as to why. Because, again, firms pay differently. Some broker-dealers don't pay on outside assets at TD Ameritrade or Schwab. Some do. And one thing that we at Trusted Visions attest to every one of our clients is is we will never put our financial gain in front of what's in the best interest for our clients, whether that's an advisor, an OSJ, or an enterprise. So that's a little bit about why some broker dealers pay more than others. Sean, I'm going to kick this back over to you.
Sure.
And talk about another question we get a lot is, well, Sean, if the broker dealer is paying you 6% or whatever it is, how does that impact my transition deal? So I guess the first question would be, does working with a third-party recruiting firm take away from an advisor, OSJ, or enterprises deal? And secondly, if I'm our audience, I'm asking you, is it really worth it? So can you dive into that a little bit?
Sure. Well, I'll start with the first question. And I'm going to answer this question just based on my experience as a corporate recruiter. So, to answer the question, does the fee impact the deal? The short answer is no. And I'm going to say most, because I do know of a broker dealer that actually did include the third party recruiting fee within the offer. However, most do not. So short answer is no. And, typically most, independent broker dealers actually leverage third party recruiters. That's why you don't see many that actually include the fee within their deals. Third party recruiters are very essential for the success of independent broker dealers. And this speaking from pure experience. I've worked with some firms that heavily relied on third party recruiters. 90% of their lead flow came from third party recruiters. And this actually, contracted third party recruiters actually help broker dealers to an extent, not just from lead flow. I mean, the lead flow is great. However, typically these firms leverage third parties so they don't have to pay, a lot of salaries in-house. If you get a few recruiters in-house and you leverage several third-party recruiters, that's been a formula of success, for many broker dealers. The question of, is it worth it? That's completely up to the advisor. You have to ask yourself, will the recruiter be involved in the process, or is this a recruiter that's just kind of throwing my name out there? And I think that's a question you should have initially and upfront, because you have some decision making here. If you're working with a third party recruiter that is just throwing your name out there, you have to take into consideration that you'll probably be spending a lot of time with 5 or 6 broker dealers to kick things off, if that's the approach. And your time is very important as an advisor. But if you're working with a firm like Trusted Visions, where we really do our due diligence, and we're not going to ever introduce you to 6 firms. I mean, that's a waste of everyone's time. We typically introduce you to 2, maybe 3, if we feel or deem that's necessary. So in that event, certainly, we're saving you some time, and we're making sure that we're putting you in front of the right personnel. So, you are the third party recruiter's clients. So, it's up to you to dictate their involvement as well, and the amount of work they do. And we believe that they should be with you every step of the way, throughout the process, A to Z, to make that, payment, after you affiliate, worth it. So, this is my opinion based on, my experiences. I do believe that, third party recruiters are essential, to the broker dealer space, and it is worth it. It is worth it, certainly from the third party recruiters like ours approach.
Yeah, and Sean, you bring up a good point there of, their time being our audience, advisors, OSJs, or enterprises. This isn't just a business decision. A lot of times it's an emotional roller coaster.
Right.
We're on the phone at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night on the weekends. And so my point in saying that is, for our audience, if you do a little bit of quick math and say, okay, I'm a $500,000 producer, Sean's going to potentially make $30,000 working with me. That's where the hands-on approach comes, Sean, if I'm a client of yours, I'm going to look at it from the perspective of, if you're just throwing my name out and someone's paying you $30,000, I've personally got a problem with that.
Right, right, right.
Unless, or on the flip side of that, where we're on every technology demo, we're on every home office visit, we go to the offsite meetings with the reps, we're talking to advisors. So that's a great point. And I think to take it a step further on, is it worth it? Firms like Trusted Visions, we really try to ask the questions that you don't know to ask. And so I'll give you an example of that. When we're talking about compensation of third-party recruiting firms, if you're recruiting OSJ or enterprise, some broker dealers say, hey, if Jeremy and Sean send you leads once you're on board, we'll pay the entire fee of Trusted Visions. Some broker dealers say, hey, we'll pay half, you as the OSJ or enterprise pay half. Some broker dealers say, if Jeremy or Sean want to send you directly a lead, we don't pay any of it. You as the OSJ or enterprise have to pay it. And those are some questions that you really want to make sure that whatever third-party recruiting firm you're working with, you're asking them, how much in the weeds do you get? Because to your point, Sean, and I think you've made this point many, many times, you better know now, because you're not going to get an exception after you're on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And there's just a lot of questions that you just wouldn't even think to ask of, hey, some broker dealers don't pay as much transition money to one of your recruits. Well, if growth of adding advisors is important to you, those are things you have to know. And you wouldn't even think to ask. And so, Sean, I guess one question as we wrap this up is, for our audience, are these questions in terms of, hey, Sean, how involved are you going to be? What can I expect? How are you paid? Are you going to ask the questions that I don't know to ask? Or what questions am I not asking? Are those fair questions that our audience should be asking, not just Trusted Visions, but any third-party recruiting firm that they're working with before they engage with them?
No, absolutely. I believe an advisor should ask those questions to establish an expectation, early on in the process. I've always felt this is a relationship business, and it's a trust business as well. And, if you're working with a third party recruiter who's going to, pitch you on the fact that they're going to really, make sure you find the best broker dealer placement or best broker dealer for your practice and your livelihood, then I think it's only fair that those questions are asked initially to set that boundary to, because, hey, some advisors may not want, a hands-on approach. Some do. But at any rate, you still want to know the service that you're going to receive. And that's with anything. I know if I'm receiving a service from someone, I'm going to ask the questions, as to what all am I going to receive from the service that you're offering. So I highly encourage an advisor to do the same thing when working with a third party recruiter, for sure.
Yeah, and we always put it into context. It's just like if you're buying a house, you don't question the 3% that you're paying the realtor, or if you're buying a car, you're not looking at the commission that you're paying the car salesman.
Right.
This is the same approach. Is our audience, you guys all of you are great at what you do in terms of providing financial advice to your clients, relying on a firm like Trusted Visions that can really dive deep and make sure that you're getting the best possible deal, but also the best long-term partnership. So, Sean, great seeing you as always, my friend. As I said to our audience, we're going to take next week off and enjoy Thanksgiving. We hope that all of you can spend time with family, friends, and loved ones and enjoy Thanksgiving and just reflect on, it's been a crazy year. 2020 was crazy with the pandemic. Hopefully we're coming out of that and just enjoy it. We thank you for listening to us and religiously watching our podcast. Please comment on our LinkedIn page if you have any questions. If you want to schedule a consultation, please email us at info@trustedvisions.com or follow us on our YouTube page at Trusted Visions Placement and Consulting. Thanks. Have a blessed week and a very happy Thanksgiving.